we live?
Yes, we are.
I'm checking. Sorry, I just got to refresh my YouTube page, make sure we're good. There we are. Okay. Hi, everybody. Change this over here. Hi, everybody. Welcome to our workshop today. So my name is Brianna Beats. I'm an applicant liaison and resource developer with the Texas Medical and Dental School Application Service, also known as TMDSAS. TMDSAS is the primary application service that students use to apply to medical, dental, and veterinary schools in Texas. So we're located in Austin, Texas. That's where I'm coming to you live from today. And from us here at TMDSAS, thank you for joining us today. We're going to talk about the veterinary school application for entry year 2023. But first, I would like to take a little poll. I know we have a few people watching. Just throw it up here anyway. I'll throw the poll up here anyway. If you can respond at the web address up there. It is pollev.com/TMDSAS775. And if you're unable to do that, just drop a comment in the YouTube comment chat there. Our poll today is, where are you from? Our first poll of the day. We just want to find out where our listeners are joining us from. I'm assuming Texas, but you never know. There's some folks from other areas that may be tuning in. I'm not sure if we're getting any results yet. I can't tell with this interactive map. Are we, Miriam? Yes, okay. Oh, I see. Okay, the little green tags are popping up there. Okay, so we have a few people from the central part of the United States there. North Texas area, maybe. Great. Well, thank you guys for being here today. We're going to move on with our presentation. I'm just going to launch right into it. There we go. Okay. So like I said, my name is Brianna Beats. I'm an applicant liaison here. That means I work with applicants as they are going through their application. We provide resources for folks to prepare for that application process. And we also process those applications and reach out to applicants during that time. So let's talk about your application. The first and most important thing to know is that you can always contact TMDSAS as you go through the application process. So whether you're thinking about applying or getting ready to apply, or as you are applying, even after you submit your application, if you have questions, just know the official communication mode from TMDSAS is the instant messaging feature of the application. So once you create your application and log in through the portal, you'll be able to see the instant messaging feature there. And you'll usually get a response back within 2 business days. And you also receive a notification via email that you have an instant message in the portal. So that's the primary mode for communicating with us as you go through. Of course, we also have a phone number for contact. If we could possibly drop that phone number in the chat just so that we have it for folks as we go along, that'd be great. And email as well. Our email is info@tmdsas.com. So let's talk a little bit about that processing of the application and what that means for you as a veterinary applicant. At TMDSAS, it takes 2 to 4 weeks to process your application once it's submitted. We, as liaisons, reach out to you once your application has been processed and sent to the schools that you are applying to. We, on our end, we conduct a review of state residency and GPA calculations, and then we transmit that information, your entire application, to the schools that you've selected. sometimes there may be a need for additional documentation. So we may reach out to you concerning, it's usually about Texas residency. Sometimes we need additional documentation for that. Sometimes it may be about AP credits or something like that, just to clarify coursework or academic fresh start, stuff like that. So that's why we encourage folks to check their instant messages within the application portal and to check them frequently. That way you avoid any processing delays if we should need something from you. All right, let's talk a little bit about your timeline. And that includes our timeline of when the application is due, but it also includes things that you as an applicant should be thinking about at this time, all the way through when you want to matriculate and when you want to start vet school. So our application opens, the TMDSAS application opens on May 2nd. That application opens up, you have access to it, you can go in and begin filling it out. However, you cannot submit that application until Monday, May 16th at 8 a.m. That's when the application submission period begins. And you then have until the veterinary deadline of September 16th, 2022 to submit that application for entry year 2023. Here are a few important dates we want to highlight for everyone. September 16th, that's that application deadline, as mentioned. January 2023, that marks the start of the interview cycle for the vet schools. And then in February 2023, that's when the offers of acceptance begin to go out to applicants. April 15th is a deadline to accept those offers of acceptance. So if you're timing your application, you're thinking about those processing times. You're considering that you have 4 weeks of kind of a flux period there while your application is being processed, and that depends on how many applications are coming in through TMDSAS at that time too, because during our peak season, it can take up to that 4 weeks of processing time. And then after your application is your primary application is processed with TMDSAS, and it is transmitted to the schools of your choice. We encourage our applicants to be thinking ahead of time, be thinking about your test scores, your letters of evaluation, those supplemental documents that you may have to submit. It is worth noting that for the vet schools, the GRE is not required. However, if you have taken the GRE in the past and you have scores, you will be asked to enter that information in the application and release those scores. It can take up to 36 hours for those scores to be received once you release them. And the information for how to do that step by step is in our application guide that will come out in the coming weeks. The letters of evaluation that you will be submitting usually take about 7 to 10 business days, and we'll get into that a little bit later about what exactly those letters of evaluation look like and the details of all of that. Now, when it comes to transcripts, you are not required to submit transcripts at the time that you submit your application to TMDSAS. Only later on, when requested by us, will you send in those transcripts. All right. Let's talk about secondary applications and CASPER. So some schools require a secondary application. So both A&M and Texas Tech will require a secondary application. We are the primary application. Once you fill that out, you can complete your secondary as soon as you submit your TMDSAS application. So that being said, the secondary applications are handled by the individual schools, like I said, A&M and Texas Tech. So any questions about those secondary applications can be directed to those respective schools. And any required documents or fees associated with those secondary apps should be sent directly to the school and not TMDSAS. All right, so CASPER is an online test assessing non-cognitive skills and interpersonal characteristics. And it's worth noting that both of the Texas vet schools do require CASPER. I believe we have a link to share with everyone here to our website. This is a page that will give you more information about those secondary applications, and we'll also give you more information about CASPER scores. And again, yeah, the CASPER score is not managed by TMDSAS. So be sure to visit the individual schools' websites to review deadlines and requirements pertaining to CASPER. And one more note here, if you check back with our website, that link that was just shared with you, when our application opens May 2nd, if you check back to that web page, you will be able to view the specific CASPER deadlines for entry year 2023. Once those are available, we list them. All right, so here's a visual for everybody. Just thinking about the timing of your application. So if you are submitting in May, that's the time you're working on the application. Of course, that's shorter because you're trying to submit earlier. And then this yellow block here is the processing time at TMDSAS once you submit that application. And then as you can see here, this is how much time the schools have to review your application and send out interview invites. And of course, that changes if you are applying a little bit later. Versus when you're submitting your TMDSAS application up against the deadline, then obviously you have a much shorter window there for the time for the schools to look at that, review that information, and consider you for interviews. So just something to think about. We always suggest that you consider your personal timeline, what works best for you, start collecting everything you need to fill out the application, and just make sure you're giving yourself enough time to get those letters of evaluation together, to consider test scores, to fill out your coursework information, which is a pretty lengthy part of the application. Now, before we get into our next section on residency, I did want to go into our second poll of the day. We have a question here for everybody. Let's see if we can get that up. What launched you on your path towards a degree in veterinary medicine? We're just curious if folks would like to share. We would love to hear from you. And again, you can respond at pollev.com/TMDSAS775, or you can text TMDSAS 775 to the number 37607. Or of course, you can drop a message in the YouTube chat as well. Oh man, I was really hoping to hear some responses on this one. You know, we can move on, but we might come back to this one. So there we go. Ooh, yeah, okay. Our first response says, it's what I've always wanted to do since I can remember, and when I was old enough to actually work in clinic and loved it, it just made sense. Awesome. I think that's amazing. A lot of folks feel a calling to do healthcare work, veterinary work. It just made sense. I like that phrase. Well, beggars can't be choosers. I at least got one answer, so I'm happy. Let's move on for now, and we'll go back to our slideshow here. All right, so when we talk about residency in regards to the TMDSAS application, we're talking about Texas state residency. So we are looking at that determination of Texas residency, and we determined that according to the Texas Higher Education Coordinating Board, they have rules for establishing residency. And we do have a helpful link here to our website that will drop down below that gives you a more complete idea of what goes into residency. But there are two bases for claims for Texas residency that folks will have the two different options to go through. For most folks, especially with vet applicants, we see residency through high school graduation. If you lived in Texas, graduated high school in Texas, lived here 36 months prior to that high school graduation, that's all we need from you to know that you have established that Texas residency. For folks who did not meet residency through that option, the second option shows a pathway there for establishing residency by domicile. And so in considering that, we just ask for a bit of documentation to show how that residency is established, that domicile is established in Texas. So there is a question in the application where you select your residency there, and a tip that we emphasize and give out to applicants is that if you are a Texas resident currently and you're just studying out of state, you're going to college, university out of state, that you should select your legal residence, your state of legal residence, when filling out the application. And that's not always the state you're currently residing in. You could be a Texas resident, but be living in Oklahoma going to school. If that makes sense. So like I had mentioned before, sometimes we request certain documentation to look at your residency and determine that. These are some of the documents that we may request: visa, permanent resident card, Texas ID, voter registration. Yep, sometimes we'll look at utility bills and mortgage documentation to confirm that you're living in Texas and have been for 1 year prior to the application deadline. So just a list of some of the things. It's not like we would ask for all of these things. It's on a case-by-case basis. There's different ways that you're showing that you've established domicile in Texas. So the other tip that we would like to give out here is that if you are communicating with TMDSAS and checking your messages, then you are doing everything you need to, and you're not having any delays when we reach out and ask for that documentation, because we do reach out through the instant messaging feature. All right, we're going to talk about our activities now. I know this is one that a lot of applicants have questions on, and it can be a little multifaceted. So we will just start at the very beginning. The personal biography section is the section of the application where these activities will be entered. You have a character count limited to 300 characters per activity, but there is no limit to how many activities that you can add to the application. So as a vet applicant, you are covering all activities from high school graduation to planned matriculation. And you enter each activity only once. With a few exceptions, if you have a healthcare activity and it's also an employment activity, you can enter them in both sections. Or any activity with leadership, you can enter it in the leadership section as well as in the other activity section. You will also have a spot for planned activities, so anything beyond when you're submitting your application through August 2023 would be in the planned activities section. So you can start to collect your list even now before you apply, before the application opens, just keeping a running list for yourself of your activities and what category you are putting them into. So here are the categories, as I've kind of talked about here. We have achievements like academic recognition, non-academic recognition, and leadership. There's experience-based activities like healthcare activities, research activities, employment, community service, extracurricular and leisure activities. And then we have the veterinary supervised experience, and we have animal experience as well. And then your upcoming activities are those planned activities I talked about through August 2023. Go through now, make a list for yourself, and select the best category for each activity, and think about those 300 characters that you would use to describe that activity. Of course, you can use less than 300 characters, but that's just the maximum that you get per activity. And there is a meaningful experiences section where you will select 3 activities to discuss in more detail, 500 characters. So that's an opportunity to elaborate on one of those experiences. The activity categories as broken down a little bit further. If we're talking about academic recognition, we're talking about academic honors, awards, and other recognitions received since graduating from high school. Non-academic is non-academic honors, awards, and other recognitions received since graduating from high school. Leadership is any leadership roles or positions of responsibility held since graduating high school. And in the absence of any of those roles, you may list leadership qualities that you've had from other opportunities. Oh, yes. Okay. So let me backtrack a little bit here. Normally with our other workshops, we're telling applicants that the activities are listed high school and beyond, but for vet applicants specifically, you are able to start listing your activities in high school, from high school onward. Thanks to my team for catching that one for me. Did I skip one? No, I didn't. Okay, here we go. So the next activity category is employment. We're listing all jobs, paid work experience. That's what we mean when we say jobs. Any paid work experience opportunity activities that you've held in high school or beyond, including military service. Paid healthcare activities may be listed in this section of employment in addition to the healthcare activities section. So then the research category, listing any significant research activities, paid or volunteer-based activities that you've participated in, and again, that's in high school or beyond. If your research culminated in any publications, abstracts, presentations, or posters, you will have the opportunity to provide details. And so you do get a 500-character limit there. Healthcare activities, you're listing all direct healthcare related activities you've participated in during high school or beyond. So we have some examples here: shadowing, scribing clinical research, patient care, any direct observation. So that applies a little bit more towards our medical and dental applicants. So in thinking of shadowing, though, that leads us to our veterinary supervised experience category. This is where, as a vet applicant, you are focused on listing your experience that greater than 50% of your time was spent interacting with or under direct supervision of a veterinarian. So these should relate to vet, clinical, agribusiness, or health science experiences that you had with veterinarians. Again, making sure that it's greater than 50% of your time was spent interacting with or under supervision of that veterinarian. And these will be different than the activities you enter for animal experience, which I'll get to in just a moment, or the employment experience that we mentioned earlier. So for the animal experience category, you're listing any animal experiences not supervised by a veterinarian or any other general animal experiences. So only 100 hours of pet ownership per species does apply to that. So you have a maximum of 2 animal species that you can mention, but only 100 hours can count towards that. Farm and ranch experiences are under here: 4-H membership, animal training, working in a kennel or anything similar, only if not under the supervision of a veterinarian. So if it's under 50% of your time was spent in an experience interacting with or under direct supervision of a veterinarian, then you're going to list it as animal experience. All right. Community service is the next category for activities. Any non-healthcare related or non-veterinary related community service or volunteer activities that you've participated in high school or beyond. Again, I know it says since graduating from high school, but for vet applicants in particular, it's any activity that took place in high school or beyond. Extracurricular activities, any significant extracurricular or leisure activities or hobbies that you've participated in high school and beyond. So before we get into meaningful activities, I do want to ask my next poll question. Poll number 3 is, what is your most memorable activity? So we're going to get that up there for you guys. If you guys could give us a quick answer just based on your own experience. What's your most memorable activity in thinking about making these lists for the application? I'm sure 1 or 2 has come to mind for you. I'm guessing it's going to be animal experience or vet experience, but I could be wrong. It could be an extracurricular activity or something that has had a big impact on you, academic honors, anything like that. Working with tigers in an animal sanctuary. Ooh, that sounds so cool. Yeah, very memorable. Working with the cow vet at home in Texas for the past 3 summers. All right. Very memorable activity, especially if you're going back to that activity during your summer breaks. I was right. The memorable ones here are direct experience working with animals. Any other answers? Again, you can go to the poll there at pollev.com/TMDSAS775 or text TMDSAS 775 to 37607. Okay, so interning at a vet clinic or showing cattle through FFA. Okay, the Houston Livestock Show and Rodeo. Cool. Traveling around Europe for a summer. Very memorable activity. Awesome. These are all great, guys. Thank you. Let's go back to our slideshow here. Now, I mentioned the meaningful activities was an expanded section where you get to select 3 from your long list of activities, everything we just talked about. But you will have 500 characters to discuss why each activity of those select 3 has been meaningful to you. So that list that all of you just gave, start making those connections now. By the time that you get to your TMDSAS application, then your answers will be fully fleshed out, right? Why each of those activities had been meaningful to you, or how and why they were meaningful. These should only be activities that have been completed or ongoing, right? So any activities with a future start date, of course, you can't really reflect on, so those wouldn't count in thinking of those 3 meaningful activities. All right. And as I mentioned before, anything after you are submitting your application is considered a planned activity, right? Because you have not started it yet. You're going to indicate those future activities and that you do plan on participating in between the application deadline and August 2023. And that includes any future employment, as well as any future research, healthcare, vet experience, community service, or extracurriculars. And of course, things always change, so those activities, you may put them in, and come time for that future date, that activity may shift or change, or you may add other activities. However, after you submit your application, you are not able to change any of those activities, and that's okay. The schools know that those things kind of shift, so you'll be able to talk about it more in your interviews if you have updates to those planned activities. All right, let's talk about coursework, our next section here of the application. A question that we get a lot is coming from applicants is, what exactly is included in my GPA? Well, TMDSAS calculates over 100 different GPAs, and the 2 biggest ones are your overall GPA and your BCPM GPA, which is also called the science GPA. BCPM GPA includes courses taken in BCPM course areas. So that stands for biology, chemistry, physics, and mathematics. And a very important consideration to GPA is that all of your courses are included. So you're listing every single course that is on your official transcript from your institution. Any course where you've received credit, you're listing that. And courses where you may have taken the course again to replace a grade is just worth noting that all the grades are factored in for the TMDSAS GPA. So for those calculations, so it may vary slightly from what is listed on your official school transcript for a GPA because of those grade considerations. So there's no grade replacement. Just keep that in mind. And the courses in biology, chemistry, physics, and mathematics, that BCPM, those BCPM departments that we just mentioned, if you were taking a course that was for non-science majors, like some intro to biology or intro to chemistry can be biology or chemistry courses for non-majors. So just know that those are included in the BCPM GPA, as well as graduate courses that meet that science GPA requirement. All right. When it comes to entering coursework, you're going to enter those courses, like I said, exactly as they appear on the transcript. We are entering the course name and number, amount of credits that course is worth, and then you're going to categorize those courses according to the course areas here. So these are the TMDSAS areas that we have within the application for you to choose from for your courses. So you have biology, chemistry, biochemistry, organic chemistry, English, physics, statistics, engineering, and natural or physical sciences. So a lot of your animal sciences courses and agricultural courses will fall into that natural science or physical science category. And of course, you can use the TMDSAS course listings. If you're not familiar with the TMDSAS course listings, I'll give you a brief rundown of those. On our website, we're going to drop a link here in just a moment, but the course listings are listed on our website. They show the approved courses at various institutions, so you are able to use that to see if the courses you are taking will meet those requirements, those prerequisite requirements for the veterinary schools. And if your school is not on the course listings page, all of the major schools in Texas will be there for sure. But if you're not seeing your institution, you can also reach out to us at info@tmdsas.com. All right, and like I mentioned before, your agricultural and animal science courses will be coded as natural and physical sciences. That will be the designation that you will use when choosing which category those courses go into, and they will be included in your BCPM GPA. So the coursework section can be pretty daunting for some, so just make sure you're taking the appropriate amount of time as you fill out your application to sit down. We recommend having your official transcripts on hand just for you as you go through, so that you can be looking at the exact information for each course and inputting it into the application. Now, after you put your coursework in, you're going to see your PCR report. This report is a little bit confusing for some applicants. I'm going to try to break it down for us here. This is an example. This picture here shows us exactly what you would see once you put in your courses. This is just a catalog of the science courses, the prerequisite requirements. English is there as well. And so as you can see, there'll be an hour deficient number. Don't get freaked out if you do happen to see that you are so many hours deficient in any course area, because you do have to keep in mind that if you do not have a grade entered for a course, say it's planned coursework that you have coming up next semester, you don't have a grade for it yet because you haven't taken the course, that factors in as well. So once there is a grade for that course, the lecture hour deficiency or lab hour deficiency may change there. If you just keep in mind the courses that you are taking, your plain coursework, you can always adjust that if you are short in any course area, that this can be used as a tool to see that and plan for that. Of course, we recommend, if you look at the course listings ahead of time, that you do have a better sense of what is meeting requirements and what is not, so that you can take the appropriate coursework before you even get to that point with the application. We also recommend that you take a look at the requirements that are listed by the vet schools on their individual websites or in talks with those vet schools, and consult with your advisor to make sure that you are taking the right courses that you need. All right, our next section, we're going to start talking about the evaluation forms. So in the letters of evaluation section of the application, you are inputting the names of the evaluators who will be completing your evaluation forms. So 3 are required, and one of those, of course, must be from a veterinarian. And these are only digital submissions. So these forms are only digital. So any letters of evaluation will not be accepted or included with your application. It's just the applicant evaluation forms for vet applicants. And of course, if you fill out your application and you put in the name of an evaluator, and let's say you even submit that application, because you don't have to have all those forms at the time that you submit your application with TMDSAS, so you do have time after you submit. The only thing you do have to put in is the names of those evaluators, but let's say you put that in and one of your professors is too busy and cannot complete that evaluation for you, or something has come up and they can no longer do that for you, you are able to change your evaluators. You just need to reach out to TMDSAS. You would just send in an instant message through the application portal. And you can submit your application before TMDSAS has received those evaluation forms, like I said. So some people get worried that they can't submit their application, or that they must have all those evaluator forms ahead of time, and that's not the case. You can actually submit just as long as you have those names or a placeholder for one of those evaluators' names, I should say. And one second here. My notes got away from me. Okay. So the one evaluation form must be completed by a veterinarian. The veterinarian should address what the applicant did while working for him or her. They should also honestly evaluate the applicant's strengths and weaknesses. So just to give you an idea of, who should be completing these forms and what kind of things that they're looking for. So if you're working with a veterinarian, and give them a heads up about that, have that conversation. We suggest finding those folks who are going to be able to provide a good evaluation for you, people who know you, and giving them a little bit of a heads up that you will be asking for that from them, so that you don't find yourself in a spot where you are scrambling to get those evaluations completed, and where you are bugging those people over and over again because you need to get it submitted because that deadline is coming up in September. And so just to be thinking about it now can be super helpful in planning your own timeline of when you want to apply. Let those evaluators know when you're looking to apply, when you need to apply, and then you can communicate with them. So we just recommend that you have that working relationship with your evaluators. Those evaluations, they can't be sent to us until after the application opens. So just keep that in mind, that those evaluations shouldn't be sent to TMDSAS until after the application opens May 2nd. And I think that's everything we need to know. I mentioned the completion of that page creates those placeholders for your evaluations to be uploaded. Awesome. Okay. So just to give you a little step-by-step of how this works with the evaluation form, you're indicating which evaluators will complete it. An email is sent to those evaluators with further instructions and a link to the evaluation portal. Like I mentioned, these are digital evaluation forms, so that's how they are getting submitted by those evaluators. And then you, as an applicant, are able to track when those forms are received via your status page. So once you log in to the TMDSAS application, you'll see your status page there within the portal. Special programs, dual degree programs. So some of the schools, some of the TMDSAS schools do have dual degree programs that you can apply to via TMDSAS. I do not believe that applies for our vet schools. I do not believe there are any special programs, dual degree programs listed within our application. So we're going to switch gears here now. We've talked about the application and some of the details that go into filling out the TMDSAS application. We're going to shift now and talk about our support resources that we do offer for applicants like you. Our application guide, which will be launching by late next week. This is basically a step-by-step walkthrough of the application with instructions listed within each web page. So this is a web application guide that will walk you through each part of the TMDSAS application. Besides that instruction, there's also tips, important notices, specific TMDSAS policies, as well as links to articles and videos and podcast episodes that go into more depth about certain areas of the application. There's a great article talking about your activities and how to categorize them. There's podcast episodes talking specifically with members of the vet schools, and so you'll be able to link to some of those resources as you go along. The Inside Health Education newsroom then is that place where those articles live. This is our newsroom. It's the home for existing resources like the Courage Session videos and the Inside Health Education podcast. Like I mentioned, the podcast episodes, great resource. These articles here are from us at TMDSAS, from programs like JAMP, and these support resources are so valuable, and we encourage everyone to make use of them, as well as your health professions advisors. This is important information. This is how we communicate on certain topics. So definitely check out that Inside Health Education newsroom. Something new that we have this year on the TMDSAS website is a statistics dashboard. So this is a huge new data hub for everybody to make use of. So as an applicant or future applicants coming up, you can go to the website. You can look at the statistics based on certain sets of information, right? So by applicant type, you can specifically go in and look at vet statistics. So for vet applicants, what is that GPA distribution? What is the science GPA distribution? And you can do it based on approved applicants or interviewed applicants. So that is just a whole new set of data that can help you see, where you stack up in comparison to those who have come along last cycle, specifically in regards to vet applicants. And we do have a link for that coming. Zulema, it was not in my regular list of links, but if you don't mind dropping that in there for folks, definitely take a moment as an applicant to check that out, to see what not only where you stack up, but just to play with the interactive dashboard there. It's really cool. And talking about another resource that we have, the TMDSAS office hours. These are weekly live Q&A sessions that are hosted by TMDSAS support. They address frequently asked questions, certain topics that come up throughout the cycle. So as the application opens, and even after it opens into the summer months, different topics will come up, and our office hours hosts will be talking about those specific topics in depth to give you some more clarity on that. All right, so we do have some upcoming workshops. The ones that are probably going to apply to our folks here, I would say, would be the Ask Us Anything About Applying workshop. That will be Monday, April 25th at 1 p.m. So if you have questions after today, if you have questions after today, definitely feel free to reach out to us on the phones or email as well. But the Ask Us Anything About Applying workshop will be super helpful as well. I actually did want to throw up my next poll question. This is the last poll of the day. I will wait just a moment to let Miriam get that going. It looks like we do have the link in the chat also for the office hours. So just to keep that link handy for later on when you need to go back to see if there's some new office hours episodes coming up. And then the dashboard link is up there as well. Definitely check that one out. So which area of the application are you most concerned about, or do you have questions about? Coursework, yeah, definitely. Everybody has questions about coursework. Coursework is so diverse because we have people from different areas coming and applying, different backgrounds, and they've taken different course loads. And I know some folks are wondering what they can expect for the amount of science courses that they've taken, or meeting those prerequisite requirements. So it's definitely normal to have coursework questions. If you do have any questions, at this moment that we have not answered, do feel free to drop them in the chat, and we can talk about them at the end of this presentation. Again, you can also reach out to us at the TMDSAS office on our phone line, or through email by emailing info@tmdsas.com. All right, we're going to move on to the end of our presentation here. The panel. So we do have a panel with veterinary schools coming up Thursday, April 21st at 1 p.m. Definitely write that one down. I think it's useful for any vet applicant who's looking at applying this year, or even in future cycles. Be sure to tune in through the same platform, through our live YouTube. Well, on behalf of TMDSAS, I just want to thank you guys for sitting here with us today, going through this presentation, and letting us know a little bit about you with our poll questions. So thank you for participating. Again, my name is Brianna Beats. I'm an applicant liaison here at TMDSAS. Our email is listed there, info@tmdsas.com. Feel free to reach out with any specific questions, whether it's something we haven't talked about or something we did talk about that you want a little more clarity on, or something that has just come up as a new question after talking after our talk today. So definitely reach out. And if you won't mind taking your phone out for just a minute, we have a QR code here that will take you to a helpful page online where you can access this presentation and the resources that we've mentioned. So it's just a nice compiled list for you there. And I know that we will have recordings of these presentations. I mean, they live on YouTube now, so you can come back in case you missed anything. And that's all for me at this moment, but I do want to see if we have any questions out there. I'll ask my team. I don't see any questions. Do you guys see any questions popping up? Okay, that must mean that we covered everything perfectly, right? I'll give it just another moment if anyone can think of a question in regards to your veterinary application, anything about TMDSAS. Okay, so I do see one question here. As a reapplicant, how much of my application from last year will be on file? It's an excellent question. So there are certain areas of the application that do roll over. One moment. I know that your coursework will roll over. However, you will want to go and look at that coursework just to make sure you have the proper designations for the course area. And your basic information rolls over as well. Your name and address. I believe even your photo will be rolled over, although you can update that. The essays and activities are the two sections that will need to be input fresh when you go to reapply. And of course, your letters, you are updating your so your vet evaluation forms, those would be updated as well. That was a great question, though. Thank you for asking. Perfect. We have a link there to the TMDSAS website that will go through reapplicant information to see specifically per each area of the application which information rolls over and what will not. Also, since I'm an older student, am I considered a non-traditional and reapplicant? Yeah, so the non-traditional applicant designation is something that is left for individual folks as to how they identify. So if you identify as a non-traditional applicant, then please do indicate that in your application, and you'll have that opportunity to fill out the additional question there for reapplicants. Sorry, for a non-traditional student, as well as reapplicant. So you have that opportunity to talk about what your experience has been in both of those regards. Typically, we say if, I mean, like I said, it's up to everyone to how they self-identify, but usually a non-traditional student, it's a more extended break from school, longer than just a gap year, or you may have gone out into the field to do some work and then come back to school or something like that. That's typically what we see. You're welcome. Also, just wanted to say that we have a reapplicant workshop session that we did. We have a recording from that. So if you are on our YouTube, you should be able to find that video in our collection for Texas Health Education. There's also a link that we just dropped in the chat. I gotta say, my team is doing a really great job today. So thank you, team. All right, do we have any other questions before we leave for the day? Going once, going twice. All right, well, thank you guys for joining us today, and we look forward to interacting with you in the future, and best of luck as you go to apply this cycle.